Good morning, I'm Julie Meyer. Welcome back to Entrepreneur Country TV. Entrepreneur Country TV is part of Entrepreneur Country, which is the global community of challengers, incumbents, entrepreneurs, digital citizens, more than 325,000 of them, that are interested in sharing their insights, their ideas, their investment opportunities with the community at large. We film every morning here in Zurich and broadcast to the world some of the leading thinkers, and are happy to share that with you. Entrepreneur Country is part of the VIVA Investment Partners platform, and specifically 10X. Why do we call it 10X? Well, because when we get involved, we want to have that 10X impact. So you'll be hearing more about how we enable and achieve that 10X impact. Entrepreneur Country, as well as the Follow the Entrepreneur Investor Summit, experiencing its 10th year anniversary this year in Athens and the islands of Greece in late September. Welcome to Entrepreneur Country. We look forward to seeing you every week. Share this with your network, subscribe, and share with us your ideas. Thanks very much. Good morning, welcome back to Entrepreneur Country TV. I'm Julie Meyer and I'm here in Zurich, Switzerland. I'm delighted to welcome back to Zurich Tal Elyashiv, the founder, managing partner of Spice VC. Good morning, Tal.
Good morning, Julie.
Excellent to have you with us. Good to bring you in from Tel Aviv, but you're traveling all over the world because you've got a fascinating platform called Spice VC, which we're going to get into in just a moment. But you are a fascinating entrepreneur. My God, you've done big opportunities in China, America, based in Tel Aviv. I mean, tell us about how you became not just a global citizen, but a global entrepreneur. How did this happen?
So, interesting. People talk about career as if it's something that is planned, but I think in most cases, it's just something that you see when you look backwards. So I have an interesting background. I did very large corporate roles for quite a few years in multiple countries. Very large scale and interesting businesses, but most of them in very high growth environments. And I've also been a serial entrepreneur. This is my fifth one in 3 different continents.
Wow.
But it wasn't serial. I kept moving between entrepreneurial opportunities and large corporate roles because I think both are very interesting. And what I'm interested in is making an impact. Yeah. So I think life is about meeting opportunities and choosing whether to take them or not. And when I see opportunities to make, or potential opportunities to make a big impact, it's interesting. And making a big impact is a combination of things, of course. It's making a big impact on the world, but it's also being able to learn and grow in the process. And like any entrepreneur, the possibility for significantly large returns at the end if the venture is successful. And I think this is the thing that connects a lot of the things I've done, both as an entrepreneur and as an executive, and also in my investing world. I've been an investor for over a decade, and the ventures that I'm interested in investing in and helping be successful are ones that have the potential to make a big impact. So it's all connected in my mind.
Wow. Well, it's fascinating, but let me tell you, not a lot of people have been as successful in so many different, as you say, continents, corporate, startup, and so forth. So really, honestly, congratulations. One of the things that you mentioned at dinner last night, which I think the Entrepreneur Country community will find fascinating, is you set up a business 20 years ago in China.
That's right.
Which was an American business, which did well. I mean, in light of the kind of trauma going on between China and America today, how'd you get that done? How'd you pull that one off as an Israeli? I don't know if you're an American citizen as well, but I think...
I'm an American.
Okay.
I'm an American and an Israeli, and I lived in the U.S. for 20 years, and
Okay.
China venture was during my U.S. years. It's very hard to explain, but the first time I landed in China, I felt at home. I think that
Wow.
there's something about the culture that I connected to, and some keys to the success was we built the venture mostly based on Chinese people, local
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
and the people that stood to benefit a lot from the venture were Chinese people. We created a very exciting opportunity. Back in the days, it was very rare to see a venture like this that is owned in a combined way between U.S. and Chinese.
Absolutely.
But also our clients were large, big international names, mainly in the financial industry. And this was very appealing to a lot of people in China that came to work in the company because this was a great opportunity for them. So we were able to attract truly the best and the brightest from all over China to Shanghai to this venture, and they were extremely bright because I tracked many of them over the years, and they have all been individually extremely successful, both in China and outside of China. So great people. So if you attract great people and there is a true business need, it succeeds usually, and that's what happened.
Lovely, lovely. You said something last night at dinner that really I couldn't help but remark about, that it might seem the Chinese ways might seem strange to us on the outside. They're not strange to the Chinese. And in a way, it's kind of a blindingly obvious statement, but also just very revelatory and succinct. And I loved it, the way you said it.
It's true. To me, it was fascinating. The first time in China, I was there talking to people. And in my traditional American way, I was giving examples to some things, and I was using idioms, and I was using Peter Pan as an idiom for something that I was saying, and I saw the blank stares. And it was like, you have no clue what I'm talking about because Peter Pan is not something you grow up on.
Yeah.
And this was the big sign for me. You better understand the culture better if you really want to connect with people. And I did. Fascinating culture. China and the way things happen in China is not weird to Chinese people. It's weird for us because we come from a different culture and we're used to things being done in a different way. When you understand, things make sense. Now, you can love it or not like it, but they make sense. So
you mentioned something about this kind of two layers of things happening. Would you mind going over that again? I found that really interesting, but you said it much better than I can remember to say it.
So it's an observation, it's not a fact, right? But one of the things I noticed in China is that there are different layers of communication that is happening, especially when you look at public life. So the official statement or the official rules, and then there is how things really happen. And it seems like people there know exactly which is which, so they can navigate between the two. They feel very comfortable with that. And I kept asking questions about this, but, and they would say, no, it's okay. This is the official statement, but really this is what's happening. But this is just part of the cultural differences with what we're used to.
Now, I have so many friends from INSEAD that are Israelis, and some of them have said along the way that the Chinese are just coming in droves to Israel. Is this a broader? Is there just that? You mentioned you felt quite at home. Is there something which connects the two cultures, a belief in technology, or kind of startup nation writ large, or a kind of I don't know what it is, but I've heard that the Chinese are very interested in Israelis, Israeli technology, Israeli entrepreneurship. Is this true, or is that just what I'm hearing?
It's true. I think that it comes from several places. First, there is a very positive image of Israel and its high-tech industry in China because of the pace of growth and because of the impact. And for China, who has been for many years looking for ways to leapfrog and take a kind of front seat in what's happening in the world from a technology standpoint, not just from a manufacturing standpoint, that was very important as a way to maybe gain some of this entrepreneurial spirit. Maybe it rubs off. But there was a lot of admiration for things that happened in Israel over the last, say, 70 years. But I think there's something else that is deeper. I was trying to figure out my kind of deeper level connection with China because there was no history for that. And I think there is something in common between Chinese people where there are really two cultures that meet. There is the old culture, a history of thousands of years, and there's new China. Yeah. And they're somehow connected in a way. And you find the same thing in Israel. You find a history of thousands of years, and you find the kind of very vibrant, current, modern culture, and they live together. And I think that this is in common between Chinese people and Israeli people. I think the other thing is that Israelis are notorious for breaking rules. Breaking rules is important for any entrepreneurial venture success because you need to think outside the box. You should not accept status quo, common wisdom, what everybody tells you cannot be done. By the way, it's the same thing with spice. Everybody told us at the beginning it cannot be done, so we went and did it. Yeah. That was even more of an incentive to go do it. Chinese people do the same. In a different way, with a different style, but they do the same. So I think there's...
Tell us about spice. It's a fascinating, you are a global pioneer in what you're doing. You're really building an industry. It's it would be daunting, but I get the sense you're having an enormous amount of fun, even if probably, it's unbelievable. It's taking probably everything you've learned all your life into this, but tell us about it. I really wanted Entrepreneur Country to learn about Spice VC.
So Spice is a venture capital fund that invests in companies that build the ecosystem of the tokenization industry. Now it sounds like a mouthful, but it's really, really very focused. It's laser focused. The tokenization industry is a very new industry. It's an industry that is maybe 2 years old, a little bit, maybe more than that. And it's truly still in its infancy, but it's very, very unique in multiple ways. One, it's an industry that has a potential size of hundreds of trillions of dollars, and there are not too many industries I can think of that size. The second thing about this industry is that it's growing from zero to that size over the next 10 years. Yeah. Because there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that 10 years from now, all financial assets will be digitized. Yeah. So this whole ecosystem enabling this industry is being built now. Yeah. And as a VC, this is a great time to participate in it.
Shape it. Yeah.
Shape it. And so thanks for that comment, because when we started, it was very important for us to not come from the outside. And it all started with us tokenizing the LP interest in Spice. Spice is a fully tokenized fund, so all LP interests are tokenized. And this was something that didn't exist. We are the first ever VC fund that is fully tokenized. We're the first fund that issued fully compliant, regulatory-wise, digital securities, and we are the first digital security to be traded ever in a regulated marketplace in the world. So we did a lot of firsts along the way.
Breaking new ground.
Totally, and it was very important because as we invest in this industry and enable players in this industry to succeed and grow, we come from a point of truly understanding this industry because we were founders of this industry, and because we have the scars on our backs from understanding what's important, what's not, what's missing, and it allows us to help companies navigate this non-trivial period of infrastructure being built while the industry is growing, and also make, we believe, much better bets on who's going to succeed and who is not, and help them do that in the process.
In some respects, you could say you're making it for all of the VC funds that come after you. You're clearing the path in the forest, and they're going to benefit. But presumably, you're also probably, if VC is about buying low and selling high, you're probably getting in on better terms because people want to be part of your ecosystem, to be part of your venture portfolio. Is that a reality? Or?
It is a reality. Spice.
They want you in.
They want us in. Spice has a very strong brand recognition. Almost anything you read about the digital securities industry mentions Spice. All our portfolio companies, and we made over the last year and a bit more than 12 investments. Wow. All our portfolio companies wanted us in not because of the money we bring, but because of our involvement, our understanding of the industry, our connections in the industry, and our ability to help them make good choices in the process. And of course, that leads to much better terms on deals coming in, and also being exposed to any deal we're interested in the industry.
Excellent. You've made 12 investments. You have roughly 10 million under management. Is that
15?
50?
15.
15 under management. Excuse me. And presumably it's getting easier and easier. I mean, everything that was difficult at the beginning is getting easier. Or are there new complications? Is this getting? Are you recognizing this is even more tricky to build this industry, or would you saying, okay, now you kind of see what you need to do exactly, and you have the reputation and the momentum?
So I come from many years in the financial investment and trading industries. So we knew up front that this is a massive building endeavor, and this is what was attractive about it, because it means a lot of investment opportunities in there. So we knew it's complex, and we also knew that parts of the way and the paths will reveal it themselves as we build. It was impossible to upfront chart what it would look like, and even silly to try. So we knew it's a massive undertaking. We also knew that this is going to happen, with or without us, and we wanted to be a key part of it. Yeah. So it is complicated. Complicated makes it interesting and makes it a very, very fertile ground for a lot of ventures to do stuff and be successful in the process. It's interesting though, because 2 years ago, when we were talking about digital securities, we didn't use that term because it didn't exist yet, but we were talking about digital securities. People looked at us as if we were total nuts. And today you have all major global banks, all big investment companies, all major technology players investing mega amounts in this industry. So everybody's recognizing that this is a huge industry in its infancy, growing, and this is the time to invest in it.
Absolutely.
Right? So,
Absolutely.
So this is really interesting, and what's still hard, and I think newcomers into this industry don't recognize, is if you try and bet on a horse, probability is that you're going to lose because it's so hard still to chart what's going to. It's very hard. It's very easy to see the end picture. It's very hard to see which paths will successfully lead there. So if you try and bet on a specific horse, you're very likely to lose. If you try and bet on a portfolio, and this is really what we offer our investors, the ability to get exposed to a very diversified portfolio within a narrow industry, narrow but huge and growing. But we invest in many layers of this ecosystem. And we try and spread our investments across the different junctions that we feel are important for the growth of this industry. And the strategy behind it basically says that those junctions, companies that will succeed in those junctions tend to win the most out of the growth of this industry, right? And so this is the exposure we provide our investors, and I think the more complex the industry is, the more it gives us an edge over other players. At the end of the day, you said paving the way for a lot of other VC firms. It's true. Many other VC firms followed and tokenized part or all of their portfolio because there's mostly benefit to investors. The first and largest barrier to investors investing in VC funds is the lack of liquidity of that investment. And this eases this concern, of course. So everybody wins out of that. And it provides greater exposure in terms of people that can invest in the fund versus people that invested before in VC funds. So it's a path that other followed, and we are actually happy about that. It's not competition. The whole industry is going there, right? So we're actually happy seeing
to see other people following.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, you did choose outstanding advisors. I mean, I think top law firm. Singapore is a jurisdiction, so you made your choices very carefully about the architecture of what you did.
That's right.
Yeah. And because you've worked with these, I mean, you have a great network of people that you've worked with, so you've probably called on friends and advisors and so forth. As a venture capitalist, I mean, you're not 28. You're a good venture capitalist because you are not 28. Is that fair to say? Is that it's the sum total? Do you feel this is the sum total of what you've done, and you couldn't have done it 20 years ago, or do you think you just would have approached it differently? Or
so I think this is one of the things that I don't think it's the age thing. I think it's how much I was able to cram in those years. So it's really the experience. It's not the age. But I could have done it 20 years ago, but not as well. I think that a lot of the experiences I accumulated over the last 30 plus years in both as an entrepreneur, initiating, growing, selling companies, and struggling with everything entrepreneurs struggle with, doing very large scale and growth from small to extremely large scale, being exposed to transactional businesses, being exposed to financial industry across many countries and jurisdictions, and being an investor for over a decade, created a unique mass of experiences that I think I can draw on, not just my own experiences, but other people that I've connected with over that period of time. As you said, that I can call on as advisors and get their help and opinion and connections in the mix. And it makes it a much more rich and valuable mix, I think. But at the end of the day, as a venture capitalist, the result is what really counts. So we'll have to wait a few more years and see the end results. The fund is doing pretty well so far, but it's a young fund. So it's kind of
congratulations on that. I mean, I think that's one of the most important messages to say here is, and on top of everything else you've done, your fund is doing well.
That's right.
And quite well.
Yeah.
Quite well.
So yeah, it's doing well, and performance is outstanding as a young fund, especially if you compare it to other indicators during the last 2 years, whether it's public indices across the world, whether it's other avenues. But at the end, and this is, by the way, the interesting thing about a tokenized fund. Traditional VC fund, the proof is only at the end, right? Yeah. Because investors meet money only when there are liquidity events, when there are exits in the fund. A tokenized fund, investors meet money whenever they want because their LP interests are tradable digitally. So they can choose to exit whenever they want, even if companies didn't exit yet, and this is what our investors can do. So
interesting. I mean, it does feel that the world of investing is approaching the world of trading. In this world of everything becoming liquid, there's a merging in some respects of the two categories, where it used to be, the investment world and trading were, radically different animals. So,
and this comes from digitizing securities that historically have been private offerings, and now they're suddenly tradable. There was a barrier to them being tradable before, but now they can be tradable. Yeah. So it's a brave new world in a way.
And we spoke about Securitize last night at dinner as well, and you're and rightly so, very proud of their success. And we have a mutual friend there, and Jamie Finn, and of course Carlos, your partner. And Securitize is really taking the world by storm. I mean, it's an operating paradigm, really. I mean, you could see it become as important as the Windows operating system for this multi-trillion-dollar industry. How was that conceived? How did that business emerge? It's truly quite an extraordinary creation that you have there.
So they say that necessity is the mother of invention, and it's true in this case as well. As we were initiating SPICE and thinking about the operating model, we really wanted to be able to share with our LPs the success and growth of the fund assets before exits occur. Mm-hmm. And we were kind of thinking really, really hard how to do this because it wasn't done before. Right. And this was early 2017. We were looking at a lot of what was going on in the crypto world and looked at the technology and said, well, this is not crypto, these are securities, but the technology enables taking the LP interests and digitizing them and turning them into a tradable asset while keeping exactly the same economic rights of LPs. Why don't we do that? And we started shopping around because there were many platforms back then for issuance of tokens, but they were simple tokens. There were tokens that were meant for the crypto world. And we said, look, this is what we want. Would you do it with us? And everybody said, first, no, because we make easy money in the crypto world, so go away. And besides, what you're doing, what you want to do can't be done. It's too complicated. Go away. Mm-hmm. And we heard it enough times, and we said, well, we're all serial entrepreneurs, we'll just go do it. And we did, and we started building the technology to be able to tokenize LP interests for SPICE. And halfway through doing this, we said, well, this is way more valuable than just for spice. This is a foundation for a mega new industry. We should not bury it inside of spice. It should be an entity on its own serving this huge industry.
Absolutely.
And we spun it out.
Wow.
We spun it off as an independent company, and the rest is history. It's a very successful company, incredible growth.
Yes.
It is the main player today in this industry. It's providing the platform for issuance and lifetime compliance management for digital securities, both in the traditional world and also in the more institutional world. Most of the digital securities issued to date were issued on this platform.
Wow.
I think all the tradable ones were issued on this platform.
Wow.
So and their pipeline is growing dramatically. Its revenues are amazing. It's great to see it grow.
It's fun, isn't it?
And it's great in two ways. It's great as a founder to see this baby grow.
Yeah.
But it's also great because it's a major portfolio company of spice. And of course, for investors, it's great to see the valuation of this company growing so significantly, so quickly. But of course, we have other portfolio companies that we're very happy about. All of them are companies that we believe will make significant impact in this industry. All of them very carefully chosen. And there are several others that are already showing incredible traction in the industry. So
fantastic. Now, you mentioned that you had a high regard for the Swiss regulators and felt that they'd actually been doing their job quite well, and probably in a very Swiss way, which we all know what that is reliable and efficient and very thought through and so forth. Tell our audience a little bit more about why you think that.
So I think that regulators' job in general is to create the regulatory infrastructure that allow industries to grow in an efficient way, and efficient both ways, right? Regulation should be such that it protects investors, if we're talking about the securities industry, and also provides fertile ground for companies to operate in.
Yes.
And I think that's exactly what Swiss regulators did, and they did it extremely early. So to me, it's fascinating that while the world is still debating and discussing the differences between crypto and utility tokens and digital securities and what is what and who should regulate what and so on, the Swiss regulators were very quick to come up with a thesis that defines different types of digital assets and regulation around those different assets. And it's not just about being right, it's about providing an infrastructure that companies and investors can work with, right? And this is what they did. And it's not surprising that there are a lot of businesses and startups developing around digital assets in Switzerland because it makes it much easier for everybody to play in this sandbox and do business and feel that the environment is known from a regulatory standpoint. Being an American, obviously, I have very high regard to the SEC that took a very, very brave leading position on digital securities very early on and propelled incredibly the growth of the digital securities industry in the US. Same thing. I mean, these are two different regulators that took a different approach to things, but they did the same thing. They made a statement, they were clear, and that doesn't mean that regulation can change over time, but it means that they created enough for the industry to start growing around.
Fantastic. Now, is there any, in a kind of closing thought way, is there any kind of final observation that you want to make for our community that's watching this about what you think is going to happen in this industry, or why somebody should, who's sitting there sipping their coffee next Monday morning, should say, I got to participate in this. You know, is this a niche activity? Should everybody be educating themselves? You know, or some sort of observation that you think people really don't know, but they should.
So I think that the crypto industry painted the whole direction of digital assets in niche colors. Yeah. But it's really important to say that the digital securities industry is 3-4 orders of magnitudes bigger than the crypto industry. Wow. And potential of this industry. If you look just at digitizing real estate investments around the world, you're looking at a market size of about $600 trillion. If you're looking at private equity, and if you're looking at public markets, if you're looking at private offerings, each one of these that I mentioned, if you look at the bond markets around the world, each one of these is on its own hundreds of trillions of dollars inside. All of these are going to be digital assets in 10 years, right? Yeah. So this is a tremendous change in the way securities are done and assets are managed in the world. Yeah. This is akin, in my mind, not to the internet revolution, but to the industrial revolution. Wow. Because it changes fundamentally the way all those businesses move. Yeah. And I think not to participate with a part of your portfolio in this industry is a big mistake, because when it's going to be safe, it's going to be not interesting, because the growth is not going to be there anymore. Now is the growth from zero, not zero, but from almost zero to trillions of dollars. Wow. And not to participate in it is a mistake. And each one watching us should figure out what is their way to participate, right. But at least with a small part of the portfolio, become part of that growth.
When it's not going to be safe, when it's safe, it's not going to be interesting anymore. I think that's a nice way of putting it. And there's got to be an angle as things broaden out, democratize, everybody uses that word, but as the industry develops, it becomes more accessible to people who may not have been able to participate. And I think that social impact message, in light of all the crazy talk that we have about, you know, inequality, this and that, and, you know, the bankers didn't get, you know, but the point is that actually now the industry is going to enable. It's going to enable people to, you know, by virtue of participating, there is a broader cashment, I think. But
that's
help
right.
us just explain that last point there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think it has several aspects to it. One is greater participation means people that could not participate in certain types of investments can participate now. That doesn't mean everybody can participate, but it definitely broadens the participation. So for example, the VC industry is very, very exclusive historically, because VC funds typically don't want to have more than 10 to 20 LPs. Mm-hmm. If a fund raises $100, $200 million and has only 10 to 20 LPs, it means that every investor must invest like 5 to 10 million in average. And that means that they put aside $5 to $10 million at least for a period of 10, 15 years that is illiquid and very high risk. That means that available funds for investment should be in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Right. That's not most people in the universe. If you can digitize those securities and allow thousands of investors, suddenly people can invest much smaller sums and it still makes sense, right? So they can participate in a game they couldn't participate in before with a smaller sum,
Yes.
but gain the same access to returns. So that's the access side. The other aspect is, and I see it in SPICE, we have much richer community of investors than just having 10 LPs. It means it gives us much greater exposure in different markets. It means that we can get more help and advice from different investors in the fund, so we benefit from this as well. So it changes the whole picture for assets in terms of who can invest in them, how many can invest, and I believe in the long run it can bring more money into certain types of investments than could before. And we talked about this example last night. If you take real estate, real estate is a non-liquid asset. But if you digitize it, it becomes liquid. And the meaning of it for large investors, like pension funds and endowments and so on, that have buckets of liquid and illiquid assets, they can now invest in real estate from the liquid asset bucket, which is bigger than the illiquid asset bucket. So they can reallocate assets in a different way. So again, it's not the democratizing you talked about before, but it allows different usage of assets in your portfolio than before. And that's very interesting as well.
Well, particularly when it's the people's money. The pension funds, we sometimes think of it as the elite, but it's not.
No, it's everybody's money.
The fireman's pension, fund, it's Joe Blow, average worker. And so his money working to bring accessibility.
And hopefully working better for them.
Absolutely. Tal, absolutely fantastic and totally fascinating. We'll be sharing more information on SPICE VC and yourself to our community. I want to invite you to keynote at our Follow the Entrepreneur Investor Summit, which will be in Athens in late September 2020. I hope you'll consider that, because you would be a fantastic keynote for the audience there. That's our 10th year. And just, congratulations on everything you've achieved. We'll continue to watch your success, and I really appreciate you coming to Zurich.
Thank you.
Thanks
My pleasure.
much. All right, take care. That brings us to the end of another Entrepreneur Country TV. I'm sure you found this just as fascinating as I did. We have Tal Elyashiv, the founder and managing partner of SPICE VC and Securitize. You'll be continuing to hear a lot about SPICE VC and Securitize. Thank you so much for tuning in, for sharing this with your friends, your network, your colleagues, for subscribing. We look forward to seeing you next week.